Hey there, everybody. Thank you guys so much for stopping by my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Lailani, and tonight I have a very special guest for you guys. Something a little different from what I normally bring on to the show, but it's definitely something that I wanted so much to talk about. So I'm going to be having author Ran, and I'm going to try my best to say his last name right. Ready? Knishinsky. Oh, I think I got it. And we are going to be talking about his book, Healing with Clay. Okay, so I know my audience is probably looking at me right now thinking, Lailani, why are we talking about a conversation regarding eating dirt? And you know what? I'm asking myself the same question, but the truth of the matter is, this is a fascinating subject with a lot of science behind it, and it's something that our ancestors partake in, and it's also something that people still partake in till this day. And I want you guys to know about it. So let's talk a little bit about who Ran is. So he eats clay on a daily basis, okay? And when he's not eating dirt, he's the author of 4 books published in 5 languages. He is the founder of the company called Detox Dirt, which is an edible mon- montmorillonite clay. I'm going to have him definitely repeat that for you guys. And he's been over 15 years in both the naturopathic and allopathic medicine industries. He first owned a homeopathic dispensary and health food store, and later he worked in the hospital, med device, and pharmaceutical sectors as a management consultant and marketing executive, where he led large scale commercial efforts for high profile drugs at publicly traded companies. Rand holds a Master's of Business Administration from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University. And of course, you can always reach him and purchase his products on detoxdirt.com. So without further ado, let's bring Rand on. Hey there.
Hi, Lailani. I'm sorry I can't hear you.
You can't hear me still. I'm beginning to think it might be yours. It might be your audio. Let me
You think it's
see.
mine? Oh
It
my
might be
gosh. Okay.
now. It might be now. So, okay, you guys. So, Ran and I have been trying to figure out the audio situation this entire time. My mic just keeps going in and out. I don't know why. So, I'm starting to think it might be on his end. I don't know. But if Ran cannot hear me moving forward, we can always reschedule. So, just keep that in mind. Ran, can you hear me now?
I can read lips very well.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
that is impressive.
but I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Hold
Let
on a
me
second. You too.
just hang in there with us, guys. In the meantime, please share this live. Please comment. Please get the word out that we are doing this live right now so that by the time we get this audio stuff figured out, all of you guys will have done your part. Let me see who's in here. We have Tina. We have Mbutu. Oh my goodness. We have Lavetta. Hello, everyone. And Butu says, my nephew used to eat the dirt for and his doctor.
Okay, I'm gonna try this. Okay.
Hello?
Hello. Now I'm gonna go charge the phone. Hold on a second. Time out.
Okay. So he switched to a new device, so hopefully that'll work. So Umbutu, that's what you said. He used to eat dirt for his doctor. And what I meant to type was my nephew used to eat plant dirt. His doctor told his mom not to worry. He never had any issues. Okay. Interesting, Mbutu, and I really hope that we're definitely going to cover that subject as well. Hello, Pure Saint. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for stopping by. This is a really fascinating subject, and I'm excited. Ran, how you feeling? You got
I'm
everything
great.
set up?
Thank you guys for your patience. I don't know if it was on my end, so my
I
apologies
think it
if it
was
was.
now, because I hear you beautifully. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great now. And I've got this nice new Apple laptop, so I'm kind of disappointed. I'm going to write to Tim Cook.
Yeah, get your money back and a new laptop.
Yes.
So Ran, thank you so much for saying yes to me, for coming on my show. You know, my show's a little bit different from probably what you're used to going on. It's not really scientific based that much. It's a very spiritual show. It's very much geared towards the BIPOC community. And but I just couldn't help it. Like, this subject is so cool. And I've been seeing so many people online, you know, from all over the world, Africa, India, all over the place, like eating clay, like chunks and rocks of clay. And I'm
Sure.
like, there's got to be something to this. So the first question I have for you is, what got you to get into this? Like, how did you go from homeopathy and pharmaceuticals to this?
I know, and I never intended to eat dirt. It wasn't my thing. It was something that I never grew up with. I wasn't familiar with the practice. And I had an idea about the health benefits of herbs, right? And I was always very open to that subject matter. But clay was something really kind of strange. So when I was younger, I was diagnosed with something called a ganglion cyst. And it's basically a cyst that appears right here in the wrist area. And that grew for about 6 months to the size of, call it a grape tomato.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So I went to a doctor, an allopathic doctor, which is basically a fancy way of saying just a traditional MD, medical doctor. And the MD said, look, Ron, you've got what's called a ganglion cyst. We think it's due to shock or trauma to the wrist. Have you had any kind of shock or trauma? And I didn't remember, but that explanation didn't seem to fit right. He said, we've got two choices. Number one, I can do surgery. Number two, I can take a Bible and I can smash the cyst and break your bones. And I said, what? He said, well, that's how they used to deal with it in the old days. They would take a Bible, they'd smash the cyst, they'd break your bones, the cyst would disperse, and that's why they called it a Bible cyst.
Oh my God.
So I had a Bible cyst. I had no idea. I went home and I'm like, I'm not into the surgery or the whole Bible thing and getting smashed. So I decided I was going to consult with a naturopathic doctor. I went to the doctor and he took out a jar of dirt and he slammed it on the desk and he said, you need to eat clay. And I said, what? Clay? He said, yeah, you eat it. I'm like, put it in my mouth? What do you mean? Like, well, what is this? He's like, it's a very special type of dirt and it's called montmorillonite clay. And you're going to eat it every single day. And you're just going to do a spoonful a day. Put it in water and drink. What did I have to lose? So I started it. And lo and behold, within about a month to 2 months, it went completely away. The doctor, the naturopathic doctor, told me that the cyst was the result of a crystallization of toxins in the joint area. So they had a very different type of view towards why a cyst had occurred in the first place. And that was really the start of me eating clay for the next 30 years, which brings me to today. And the book that we're talking about is a second release. It's a revised and expanded edition of my first book that came out 20 years ago.
You know, it's interesting that you say this because, you know, the way that the naturopathic doctor explained it to you was, it was a crystallization of toxins. It was like all the toxins kind of met up in this one spot, hardened, and created an issue for you. And it's interesting that he proposed it that way because in a lot of spiritual traditions and a lot of like ancient cultures, whenever we talk about healing, whenever someone has an ailment of any kind, a mental ailment, a physical ailment, a traumatic ailment, whatever it is, it's always described as some kind of toxin or parasite or something that builds up in the body and causes mishap and unbalance, right? And for your doctor to say, you know what, eat some clay, I
Yeah.
think it's phenomenal because I've seen things where, for example, there was a man who had boils like all over his body. I don't know what the issue was. I don't know if he was out in the sun and something happened, but there was boils all over his body. And his tribe buried him in mud for 3 days, kept him from the neck down in like this like wet soil, and he had to stay there for 3 days. And when he came out, all the boils were completely healed.
Yeah, remarkable, remarkable. And there's been a lot of studies related to clay and its external use in the kinds of conditions that you're talking about, in many dermatological conditions. And as many of the listeners today may know, but clay is a commonplace ingredient in the different types of muds that are actually applied to the face
To the
for aesthetic
face.
reasons, right?
Right.
Cleopatra sort of made that popular and everything. But clay's use as an internal drawing agent for absorption of toxins has been noted. Its use as an astringent, which is a way of saying that it treats diarrhea, has been noted, all clinically validated. And its use in aesthetics has been noted, as well as, again, the treatment of different types of dermatological conditions. So it's really just a miraculous and magnificent therapeutic agent that is earth.
So you're right. I've known of it as a cosmetic thing. I've known of it as in terms of creating, jewelry and pots and art, but never really have I thought of it as an ingestible
Sure.
thing, right? So what makes clay a different type of detox than, let's say, activated charcoal, or like, lemon water or something, all these things that we call detoxifiers, that what makes clay different?
Okay, so everybody has heard all of these things that detoxify, and you feel like you wake up and you see an ad from a juice bar and they say, drink this, it detoxifies you. Eat that, it detoxifies you. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of the herbs out there that are sold for detox, they really don't detox. They're not detoxification agents. What is remarkable about clay is that it truly is a detoxification agent. And how we understand that is because when it goes into the system, it absorbs and adsorbs toxins and holds them in its spheres. So the way clay is set up, it's almost like, imagine a hotel with different floors. And those floors represent the internal spheres of clay. And the actual toxins are attracted to the electrically charged minerals within the clay, and through a process called cationic exchange, they're pulled inside the clay and they adhere to the outside of the clay, and then they're carried through the GI tract and eliminated from there. And that's how clay works in the body.
Interesting. I'm going to tie this to something spiritual.
Okay.
And actually, Rob brought this up, and it's a great point. So Rob says that clay mud is something that we use in old school baby dolls in conjure work. And it's very, very true. So the way you're describing how clay works in the body is really similar to how us, magical spiritual practitioners also kind of use it. So there's this concept called sympathetic magic, right? And this concept is that when something looks like something else, it therefore has influence on that thing. So if you are suffering from Alzheimer's, or you have brain issues, you want to eat walnuts because it looks like a brain, right? So things like that, right? That kind of concept. So with this concept, many, many practitioners have used in the past, for both good and bad reasons, this idea of making a clay doll in the form of the person that they're working on. And let's say that person is ill and they have a sickness. You would take that doll, you would take some kind of DNA or part of the person, either hair, nails, whatever. You would place that into the doll, and then you would work on the doll for healing, so that then that sympathetic magic transfers to the person. And you can also do the same thing for not so great reasons too. But the way that it works sounds really similar to the way that you described it. It's like it traps the illness, it absorbs the illness, traps it, and it's able to also link it to the person, because the DNA is now in the mud as well, which sort of gives the mud its identity, if you will. And they're able to heal the person that way by trapping the issue, and then they take that doll and they either bury it, or they destroy it, or they do something to sort of metaphorically say, okay, the healing is done, the thing is gone.
Mhm.
you know? And that's just so interesting the way that you described it. Now, here's my next question, because in the magic, right, we have the person's DNA to be able to link the mud, to teach the mud, to help the mud understand what it's doing and who it's helping. How does the mud, in this case, when you're ingesting it to get rid of toxins, how does the mud know which ones are toxins without disturbing your natural bionutrients?
It's a great question, and that's why not all clay is created equal. So not all clay has that capability of doing what I talked about earlier, which is absorbing and adsorbing toxins. Some clays, they go into the system, and like we had talked about yesterday, you and I, they sort of absorb everything in the kitchen sink. Okay, and you know, and there are deleterious effects of eating certain types of earth. Okay, some earth is just inert, nothing will happen, it's just plain old dirt. You eat it and there aren't any real therapeutic effects. But a lot of the research done with regards to montmorillonite clay has shown that clay doesn't interfere with the bioavailability of nutrients, which is really remarkable.
That is remarkable. Do you know, does the research describe anything with regards to and this might be something I'm not allowed to ask, but I'm just curious because of what I've seen on the internet. But has the clinical trials said anything about women who are pregnant? Because I know in a lot of um not so well-to-do countries, clay sometimes is their only form of nutrients, and you see a lot of pregnant women ingesting clay and saying that it is good for the baby because it has certain nutrients in it for the child. But I don't know that. I'm not a scientist. Would your clinical trials have any information on that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's a whole chapter in the book dedicated to clay and pregnancy. And you're absolutely right. In many parts of the world, clay is eaten by individuals who are pregnant. In fact, there was a story from, I believe it's from Malawi, and somebody, one of the government officials, was asked at the time, um, do pregnant women eat clay? And his answer was something like, well, if you want to get pregnant, you need to start eating clay. And then you stick with eating clay after that. And so it's been related to what's called the time dependent theory. And the thought basically is that clay has various health benefits, which are offered at different intervals of the pregnancy. So at the beginning of the pregnancy, where morning sickness, for example, can be a real difficulty for many women, clay
Mm.
has that ability to actually calm down that nausea, okay? And it absorbs toxins in, I believe, in acidosis and during pregnancy, steroidal metabolites that are related to pregnancy. Again, all clinically validated, okay? Later on, for the development of the fetus, there's high calcium and magnesium and other minerals, which help the development of the bones and tissues, etc. So there is evidence that clay can be good for pregnancy, and it is done around the world. There are countries, though, for example, in Africa, where the government has had to say, not all clay is created equal. You cannot just go out and take certain types of clay and expect that there will be a therapeutic benefit. So at the same time, it's really important that who's ever eating it during that time needs to monitor what they're eating and make sure
For
they're under
sure, for sure.
supervision of
And
a doctor.
especially now, you saying that not all clays are the same, like, definitely, for those of you who are watching tonight and for those who will be watching on the replay, for sure, consult your doctor before doing anything that we're talking about here tonight, and do your research, of course, because the last thing we want to do is have someone go to their garden and just pick up some dirt and just start eating it. So with
Yeah.
that said, right? With that said, there are lists of clay that we see they're kind of all over the place. You have your bentonite, your kaolin, I think it's called Razul. There's a lot of different clays that we just see all over the internet. Most, like you said, mostly for cosmetic. But what's your top 10 list? Is there a list of herbs that people, I mean, not herbs, clays that people could try out?
So generally speaking, montmorillonite clay is part of what's called the smectite family. And montmorillonite clay has been the clay that's been the most researched for its therapeutic ability in absorption and adsorption of toxin. So when it comes to that, my preference is to eat montmorillonite clay. And that's what I've been doing for many, many years. I retail montmorillonite clay, but I've also tried montmorillonite clay that belongs to other companies as well. The clay that I work with is a clinically trialed clay. And that's why I like that clay, because the clinical trials have shown its efficacy and its safety. Okay. And so that for me is my preference. There's a clay that you just mentioned, which is bentonite. Bentonite is actually, it's not a mineral name for a clay. Bentonite is a trade name for a commercially sold swelling clay. So what happens is when you buy bentonite, oftentimes if you go to the health food store and purchase, you're not really sure what type of mineral clay it is, because again, it's a trade name. So I would just caution listeners on that note. Kaolinite clay is a clay that's used as an astringent, by and large, for diarrhea. And so kaopectate, for example, in other countries actually contains kaolinite, or it may contain another clay called attapulgite. Okay, so there's a variety of different clays that are used and that have been clinically validated and researched. And there are clays today, for example, that are still being researched with sponsorship from the NIH, National Institute of Health, drugsfordirt.org, where citizen scientists from all over the country send in clay samples or send in dirt samples, because they're finding not only is clay, can it be a benefit as far as absorption of toxins, but it contains a lot of natural microbiome, bacteria, which have benefits to the human body.
Yeah, definitely. I'm fascinated, and I'm going to be purchasing some from you definitely soon. And I wanted to know, is there any, so coming again from sort of the spiritual perspective. So we see, is there any validity in your opinion, to a lot of these spiritual movements around dirt and clay and tree hugging and all this hippy dippy stuff, right? I remember one time I went to a retreat and I was experiencing a really bad headache. And one of the women at the retreat said to me, you know what? Just stick your hands into the ground and just breathe into the ground, and your headache will go away. And I was like, okay, right, worth a shot. I did it. And sure as hell, it worked. I mean, it was almost like it just sucked the headache right out of me. And I'm just curious, have you experienced anything like that? Have you tried out any of these movements during your journey of researching, clay?
So I've done clay now again for 30 years. And for me, there are healthful properties to clay, but I do definitely believe, and this cannot be, there's no real clinical evidence for what I'm going to say, but there is a benefit, I believe, to clay, which is a grounding benefit. If you take us apart, our bodies, we're water, we're minerals at the end of the day, and we're bacteria, and that's what we are. And so in the Bible, there's that phrase, from dust to dust. And so when you go ahead and you relate it back to the Bible, what I find really super interesting, after I started to research the health benefits and validation clinical for clay, is that in the Bible and many origination stories for religions all around the world, as a matter of fact, not just to one location, man comes from earth. And I thought that was just absolutely fascinating to see that across many different cultures.
No, you're 100% right. And so many creation myths talk either coming from earth or coming out of caves where men, yes.
And so,
You know,
oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Sure. So I mentioned to you before, so I was born in Israel. And so in the Bible, you've got Adam, which is fashioned from dirt. But Adam, the word means, in Hebrew, it comes from the word Adamah. And Adamah literally means earth. Okay. And then the name Adam also is a play on the word Adom, which in Hebrew means red. So there's a thought that Adam and Eve came from red earth.
Red earth. Wow.
What's really fascinating is that you fast forward thousands and thousands of years, no, actually a lot more, but you fast forward to where we are to the present day, and you can see studies that are happening in laboratories, studies that have been done by Arizona State University, Cornell, and they show that clay could have been part of our primordial womb, and that there's bacteria in clay, and it acts as the precursor to the formation of polypeptide protein chains, which is basically a fancy word for amino acids or proteins, which is the beginning of life.
Oh my God. So you're saying this is in labs right now. They're talking about it.
Absolutely.
They're theorizing about this.
It's in my book. This has been published in the news. It's available online. There are studies people can read. I summarize it all. But yes, it's absolutely fascinating to think that over billions of years, we may have actually evolved from Earth.
Wow.
When you take that Earth and you take the bacteria and you take that intense heat and the volcanoes and
the water
everything
and all that,
and the water, and you put it together, they found that clay was actually able to, if you will, protect and allow for the formation of those peptide chains.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
scientists today, some scientists venture to think perhaps this is really what evolution is. But then again, marry it back to what you've read about the creation myths, and it's just mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling and interesting to have this discussion.
Oh my gosh. And Butu's like, show that book again. All right, here it is. It's called Healing with Clay, a practical guide to Earth's oldest natural remedies. You guys need to get on this yesterday, okay? I'm going to leave a link to his website and a link to Amazon as well, for sure.
And by the way, I want to tell your listeners, please, everybody, I'm not a nut. I've worked for 15 years in the naturopathic industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and I ran a lot of pharmaceutical products that did $500 million a year. I've been involved in the marketing, legal, regulatory administration of big products. I've worked on advisory boards, and I know what it takes to commercialize a drug. So when you said you weren't sure why you're doing this podcast or vlogcast on clay, I wasn't really sure why my calling was to actually write a book on clay and then write another book and come out with a product. But it's something that I followed because it's so incredible and truly, it's just a wonder. The clinical data is there. And so the question is, why isn't clay more popular?
Right.
If that's the case, because it's dirty at the end of the day. It's just weird. We live in a very clean society. We live in a society where, think about this, we're so protective of our bodies during COVID that we all walked around and we sanitized our hands as many times a day as we could. We're buying antibacterial soaps, we buy antibacterial lotion, and we seek to keep our bodies as clean as we can because we're afraid of any kind of germ that might manifest into a real disease. But there's a lot of discussion and evidence for actually doing the opposite, which is going back to who we are, going outside, walking on the grass, getting grounded, playing with your furry dog. When your dog rolls around in the mud and you start grabbing your dog and you play with it, there's health benefits to do that. Not talking about therapy with respect to the dog, but I'm talking about all that beneficial microbiome that's on the dog. Eating that clay, eating that teaspoon of clay can make a demonstrable difference in one's life and help one feel grounded. I just had dinner or a breakfast, I should say, with the dentist last week, and I was telling him about the book, and he said, my gosh, and he bought it right in front of me, and he said, what you're saying makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense. He said, because the whole idea of absorbing toxins in the GI before they're actually assimilated and absorbed by the bloodstream and then taken up by the organs, why not arrest those toxins before they ever get there and distribute?
Yeah. And it's amazing how instinctual it all was when you were little, like making the mud pies and rolling around in the dirt. And just really getting your hands dirty when you were small. Like, I remember doing that, climbing trees, picking out worms from the ground, making mud pies, running out in the rain, really getting that mud between your toes and really feeling it. And
Yeah,
it was just it was such an instinctual, just good feeling feel, and somewhere along the line, it's like, go wash your hands and don't do that. And, you lose that. You lose it.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
have
We got
here,
to get, it's ironic though. You got to get a little bit dirty to get clean.
right,
You know?
right. And Butu says that mud protects us from the heat and can heal ailments. In African cultures, smother themselves. It's definitely being absorbed. Why would it not benefit us internally? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We were raised that God made dirt and dirt don't hurt.
And
Exactly.
And so a lot of the clinical studies actually have been done in Africa. And so there's a good reason for that. By the way, I love what you do. I love the wine and everything. I think it's awesome. And you're enjoying yourself. So a number of the clinical studies have been done in places like Africa because, for example, some of the toxins, including the highly carcinogenic aflatoxin, grows on a lot of the grains and the vegetables there, especially during periods of drought. So it was really important to be able to test clay to determine, is there a viability, is there a value in being able to help people in these drought-stricken regions where toxic overload can really mean death. Because
Mm,
if somebody were to eat and some of these mycotoxins, or they would actually see intense diarrhea, intense bouts of diarrhea, and that could really kill an elderly person or a young person. And the research has been, again, published in the book. It's all here. And it shows that clay has been helpful to actually absorbing toxins in those areas, including the highly carcinogenic aflatoxin
wow. And
and
is
all the
there
mycotoxins, which are basically fungal metabolites that grow on your food that you don't even realize. I love peanuts, it's on peanuts. I love mushrooms, it's on mushrooms. Rye, wheat, different grains, it's all there.
is there something to be said about the location of the mud? So you had mentioned that you were born in Israel. My genealogy comes from Puerto Rico. We talk about people from Africa, and we talk about these muds that are in those places. And you even talked a little bit about how some of their crops may have toxins on it. So is it possible that the location itself can also be a contributor to the different types of clay that might target certain ailments? Like, does the clay around those contaminated wheats, could the clay around that actually help that because of its location, because they're in the same place, and so therefore they're exposed to the same, you know what I mean? I don't know if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said that question right.
No, no, it's a good question, and I don't have the answer for that because all I can do is I can point out to an article that was written by Dr. Timothy Johns and one other fellow, and basically they had pulled about 30 different clays that were selling in the African supermarkets, and they only found a handful of them had the ability to do what's called catiotic exchange, which is this absorption and adsorption of toxins, and the rest of them were just either high in minerals, but not capable of absorption, or they were just clays that may have been preferred because of their texture or their flavor, but they had no real therapeutic capability. So, yeah, so that's really, so they came down to basically it was very important for people to be educated before consuming dirt. Now, people want to eat dirt, but there's a preference when we talk about dirt for clay because clay tends to be more soft.
Right.
It's easier to bite. It doesn't ruin your teeth. What I do is the clay has already been ground up. So it's literally a teaspoon in water. You stir and drink, and you're done in 45 seconds.
Yeah. Is it weird? Okay, so all right. I'm gonna confess something. So I have this texture love for like things that are chalky and rocky and hard. Will there be a market with Detox Dirt to have your clay in like rock form for people like me who just like to kind of chomp on it?
You know what?
So weird.
No, no, it's good. I don't have that, but actually, you can see videos from all over the world where people will literally eat different types of dirt, and they love that. They love that crunch, and and there are videos everywhere, and they just love the taste of it. And that's why, you can go and see that on YouTube and even Facebook. And I'm part of a few groups where people just love eating clay. And there are even addictions, by the way, to clay. There are certain people who are just absolutely addicted and cannot stop eating it, even if it's bad for their health.
Wow.
And again, pointing to clays that may not be, clinically validated and researched.
Wow. Yeah, that might end up being me. Like, if you end up having it in like a hard form, forget about it. Just take my money. I'll just hand you my credit card. Just refill every time I run out.
Yeah, that's funny. So now a lot of people don't realize, but they're already eating earth every day. So when you're talking about like that hard, rocky form, if you buy some pink Himalayan salt and you crunch on that, salt is a mineral. It's really a rock at the end of the day, and it comes from the earth. If you, for example, you wake up in the morning, you're like, I got to get some OJ, and you open your fridge up and you take that Tropicana OJ, and it says with calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a rock, but we don't think twice about that. If we said, hey, we need a little bit of Rolaids, we're not thinking twice about the calcium that's in Rolaids or in one of the over-the-counter, digestive products. So we are already consuming dirt or rocks on a daily basis.
Right. It's just a more socially appeasing, version of it. I mean, we're a society that throws away peppers and tomatoes if they have one little dent on them. There's a whole market called ugly fruit where, you know what I mean? Because people just don't want to look at something that's just imperfect. It's insane. So
they're over-the-counter products, over-the-counter digestive products, okay, that are sold at the drugstore. When you look at the back, you don't see, but they have clay. So it's already sort of ubiquitous. One of the biggest companies in the world sells a clay in Africa, Europe, Asia called Smecta, and that's Ipsen Pharmaceuticals. So clay is being sold by pharmaceutical companies today. Again, this is not as weird of a practice as we used to think.
Well, I'm so glad that you're introducing it to at least my side of the little corner of the internet. It's not huge, but it's a corner that I feel, once my people do see the benefit of something, they go hard and they support it hard. And when this book came into my hands, I knew that this was something that we needed to know about, we needed to learn about. And especially like you had mentioned, it stems all the way back to the creation myths. Like, this is in us. This helps sustain us. So like, why not continue, healing the body with the thing that we're made of,
So two things. One, on my website, if you want, you can order clay, and then there's a free copy of the book. And that's a new promotion, an autograph book, by the way, for everybody.
Wait, this one?
Yes.
Oh my God, did you guys hear that? Please go to his website. I put the link in there, detoxdirt.com. You get a free copy of this when you make a purchase. Do the thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's great. I do that because I truly believe people need to be educated about what they do, because then they'll stick with it. Then they'll be persistent. Otherwise you take something and you're not sure, does it work or not? I went to Mexico. My wife's from Mexico. We were coming back and I had a stomach problem. And let me tell you, it was probably one of the worst stomach problems I've ever had in my life. We arrive at the hotel. My fever goes to about 101 degrees. I'm stuck in my room for 2 days. It's probably illegal for me to tell you what happened in that room. Okay. My sister says, hey, don't you eat clay? Couldn't clay maybe like help you? And I thought, oh my gosh, she's right. I said, go get me clay. She goes to, at that time, Whole Foods. She brought back like 2 bottles of clay. Each one is supposed to take about a month. I took the first bottle and I literally drank half of it on my first dose. An hour later, I practically finished an entire bottle. Okay. I can tell you, within 4 hours, my diarrhea had stopped, and I actually was able to leave the room, and I went to a Justin Timberlake concert. Okay, at the MGM. True story.
He went from full on, I can't tell you what I did in that room, to I went to a Justin Timberlake concert.
So
I can't.
and that's clay. I mean,
That's
and so
clay.
I take it
Yeah.
every day, but at that time I actually didn't have it for a few days, but it's been shown to absorb the enterotoxins, which are the toxins that are created by bacteria in your gut. It's been shown to absorb pathogens, including E. coli and salmonella. It's been shown to absorb paraquat, which is a common herbicide that's sprayed on your fruits and your vegetables, etc. It's been shown to absorb mycotoxins, which are basically they're fungal metabolites. Fungus has its own toxin that grows, and that's called a mycotoxin. And if you go on the internet, you'll find 30, 40 at least different foods that contain mycotoxins. One of my favorite foods, peanuts, can contain up to 30 different types of mycotoxins. Okay. And then you've got toxins that are due to grilling foods at high temperature. You've got toxins that are due to frying foods. Okay. You've got, so we are literally assaulted by toxins on a daily basis. And we have this cure that really sits in our own backyard, if you will. Something that is so simple and easy to take. And if I were to go ahead and have to pick anything in my life, clay would be the one thing that I would do every day. I would give up my vitamins. I'd give up my herbs to take clay.
Wow. Damn, I did not know about all that other stuff. You're right. You're right. I mean, and that's just the food. The water, the air that we breathe. I mean, we're literally being attacked all day, every day, while we're sleeping, with toxins, pollutants, all kinds of stuff. So it's true. It's almost like you have to be in constant, um, uh, I don't want to say reactive. If anything, it's proactive. You want to be in constant proactive detox, so that by the time you walk out the door, your body's already ready to just pull it and take it out. Pull it and take it out.
And that's the benefit of doing clay on a daily basis. I'll speak for myself. That's why I do a simple teaspoon of clay, because I know that that's what I'm doing. I'm proactive with my health in that way.
Right. Does it help you lose weight?
So great question. There are some preliminary studies actually done with respect to clay and obesity, and it was really an accident. This researcher in Australia, she was actually conducting research on another subject when she realized that clay in the gut absorbs fat droplets. And that wasn't the purpose of the experiment. And she went, wait a second, could this be a natural cure for obesity? And I've got a little write-up on that in my book. It's not promoted for that. This is, again, very preliminary research. But yes, clay, it does seem, at least based on that clinical study, that or at least that research, that clay might be a promising treatment at some point for that.
Wow. Wow. Well, aside from your website, what's going on? What are some other ways people can reach you? Are you teaching any classes? Are you doing any seminars? Like, are you doing more interviews? Like, what's going on with you in the world of Ran?
Yeah. So in the world of Ran, I'm now doing interviews for the book. I'm talking a lot about the book. I've built up the website. I'm selling a clinically trialed montmorillonite clay, which I'm super excited about because I believe in the efficacy. I believe in this product and the safety as well. And then what else do I do? I love dreaming, by the way. I've gotten into dreaming recently. That's a whole other subject. Do you ever
Have
talk
you
about
lucid
dreaming?
yet? Have you done lucid yet?
Yes.
Yes.
I've done lucid, and in fact, but it's been a while since I did it. So now I'm restarting, and I read Stephen LaBerge's book on dreaming, and I think David J. Brown wrote a book called Dreaming While Awake or something to that effect, and it's all about these different types of techniques and what's done and how to lucid dream. I find it just absolutely fascinating. The idea of gaining consciousness within a dream. I've done it,
Yes.
and now I'm back on that path.
Yes. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff. That's
Yeah,
some good stuff.
I have other books that I wrote on other natural subjects. One is St. John's wort, and it's all about St. John's wort being used to treat mild anxiety, mild depression, and all of the clinical work behind that. It's absolutely fascinating book. And then I wrote another book on prickly pear cactus medicine. So the prickly pear is just, it's probably, if not, I'd have to say it's my favorite herb. I'm going to say that. It's my favorite herb because it's 3 parts to a cactus. So you've got the actual pads. Prickly pears are made up of these pads. And then from the pad grows a fruit. And then on the fruit grows a flower. And all of those have different effects, healthful effects on the body. So when you look at a pad, those pads that grow in the desert, for example, here in Arizona, outside my front door, when you dethorn them, you can cook those pads and it's a vegetable. It's a vegetable like any other vegetable. But what makes it super unique in the world is it's the only vegetable that contains the full range of amino acids.
Oh, wow.
Which are the building blocks of protein. There's no other vegetable, none. You can't argue the same for broccoli, for eggplant, any type of vegetable, peas, that will contain the full range of amino acids.
Wow.
Peas or legume, forget about peas, the vegetable. Then you've got the fruit that grows. Oh, and by the way, those pads, they've been shown in certain studies, one of the species, Opuntia streptocantha, for the treatment of diabetes. Okay. All research, a lot of the research done in Mexico, but some research done in the United States with grants from the American Heart Association. Okay.
Wow.
You've got the fruit that grows. The fruit sells in your area, by the way, sells out here as well, because we have a big Hispanic population within Phoenix. It's a major export in Israel and Italy. But those fruits, there are many different types. You've got green and yellow and red, but they contain a lot of really great bioflavonoids, and they have very strong healthful effects on the body. And there's been some research done on the effects of the fruit to help stabilize blood sugar. And then the flowers that grow with their bioflavonoids, and even research that was done at the Weizmann Institute in Rehovot, Israel, showing that it could have a positive effect on BPH, which is enlarged prostate in a man. So, I mean, I love prickly pear, and that's a whole nother subject matter. If somebody looks me up on Amazon.
Wow, you are a man of many, many traits here. You've got so many interests, and what I think I'm so interested about you overall is like how hard you go for it. It's like, if you're gonna do something, do 150%. Like, don't half-ass it. Let's do this, you know? And I love that. That's so awesome.
So here's what I did in the dreaming thing. Watch this. Reality check. Okay, so I read this. Stephen LaBerge did it. He said that when he would lucid dream, and you would, one way for you when you were within your dream, you would look around and you have to basically say to yourself, which world am I living in? Am I living in my conscious state or my everyday state of mind, or am I in this lucid dream? And your hands in a dream, your fingers would actually go through your hands.
Okay.
So this was one maneuver to do during your waking state, so that you will practice that in your dream. Okay. And if you're in a dream and you happen to do this because you're doing it enough in your waking state, then that can signal to you. You can say, "Oh, Lailani's dreaming." Okay. Another thing he said is making, some kind of movement with your hand that you could look at. That's going to be a subconscious reminder to yourself that if you repeat it enough, and we're talking like 15, 16 times a day repetition, so that it sinks in and you get used to doing it so much and questioning your reality every once in a while, you will begin to do that in your dream state.
Right. It's true. Also,
I am not, by the way, I'm just learning about this. So
electricity works differently as well. So if you flicker the lights on and off, that seems a little nutty to me, but electricity works very differently. It doesn't work in your dream state. If you turn off the light in your dreams, it stays on.
Oh,
or if the light is already off and you go to turn it on, it'll stay off.
Okay.
So flicking the lights on and off just in your regular day-to-day life will help you get into that habit.
Oh, that's great. I want to try that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, time just flew by, and I feel like I can talk to you about all kinds of stuff. Like, healing with clay seems to just be a bridge into like all these other conversations, and I'm really excited. But I do have one last question for you, for the audience, actually. What's a piece of advice that you would give to the audience who wants to embark on a healing journey for themselves, whether it's with clay or with St. John's or prickly pear, or just, life advice that you've tried out, something that you might want to give, a little nugget of wisdom to our audience on their journey? What advice do you
Sure.
have?
Yeah, I would say for me, what's personally worked before embarking on any sort of natural regimen is simply learning about it. Not everything is right for it, all people. And so, read an article, pick up a book, go to Detox Dirt, read some of the articles, and if what I say resonates and it makes sense to you, then explore it. That's what I would say because and when you do it, try to follow some of the guidelines, because herbs are complicated. It's really difficult to just walk into a herbal medicine store or a Sprouts. I don't know if you have Sprouts out there, but walk into a store and you see like hundreds and hundreds of bottles and
It's
know
so
what to do.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And so I would say to break that down, the truth of the matter is we don't need a lot to be healthy. What we simply need is a few things, and we need to be consistent about those things and drink a lot of water and eat healthy and exercise.
And I think be
That's the
patient
majority of
too.
people.
I think be patient too, right? Because I mean, I think in American, the worldview is like everyone wants a quick fix to everything, and I think when in the world of herbs, and I'm not sure with clay, I'm gonna try myself, but in the world of like homeopathic stuff, it's usually a long-term situation. You're usually microdosing or taking, unless there's a
That's
secret here.
no, that's actually what's wonderful about clay. Because clay, literally, when I told you that story about me in Vegas,
Hmm.
that's how fast clay works.
4 hours.
Clay,
Wow.
so clay works in your body when you take it, Leilani. So if you said
Wow.
today is
Okay.
Sunday, I'm taking it, tomorrow you don't have clay. So now you have to make a decision. Do I take clay or not? There are herbs though, like they're called adaptogenic herbs, and those can take as long as 6 months, to actually begin working and seeing those effects. So if you were to buy some of those adaptogenic herbs like astragalus, a Chinese medicine, and you took that for a week and you're like, I don't feel it. Yeah, you wouldn't feel it. It's 100% true. You'd have to take it for an extended period of time. The nice thing about clay, you take it, it works, and then you move on to your next day.
Well, that's an American dream right there. That's what they're looking for. It works right away. Sign me up. Well, Ron, thank you so, so, so much for coming on my show, for explaining this wonderful, wonderful product because I'm excited. I can't wait. And you guys make sure you jump on the website and grab this book for free, right? Um, and most importantly, I really can't thank you enough. Like this is really, really great information. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
and the thanks, gratitude to you because it's so important for me to be able to share this info, and I'm really happy, and I hope that some of your listeners actually, if they find it works for them, then I would love that, and it would make me very happy.
For sure. So, all of you guys here tonight watching us live, thank you so much for spending your time, your Sunday night with us. For those watching on the replay, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this live. And most importantly, remember every Sunday we're here 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because for me and for you, it's all about our growth, right? This is how we grow. Have a great night, everyone.